but
Yeah.
talking about your digital journey, because I know it's something that's not always been what AutoNation has practiced, but you've had this digital journey. So just sort of break that down for everyone at first.
So in 2013, I would say maybe even 2012 to 2014, AutoNation did not have a centralized marketing team. For the most part, there were regional people in the field that were working with individual dealerships. So just to get an idea of AutoNation in general, we have about close to 300 stores across maybe 18, 19 states, and we have about 30 plus brands, so it's multiple brands, super complex. So knowing that we have so many and the breadth and depth of it all, we have to like really be cautious about how we go to market. Back then, it was building this consolidated team. So in 2014, when I joined the company, I joined to build the programmatic division, something that really in terms of like dealer body at the dealer level, tier 3, was really not doing at all. So we introduced that, and we had a search team in-house, about 4 or 5 people, then myself alone doing programmatic for all those stores. And we had like 2 other people that were doing social media, but was mostly just like organic at the time. So we began to start to work on these projects and build out these programs, but over time we realized that we had to consolidate a lot of that internally within our teams. I think just the idea of having that many stores and functioning that way and knowing that each of our stores actually have their own P&L, but they have to work with us directly. Can you hear me? Now you can hear me. Okay, much better. So each of these stores have their own P&L, and but they have to rely on us for marketing since we're consolidated. So I think over the years we just like decided we needed to do some more to be able to get better at what we're doing. Think about how many stores. I mentioned 300. Think just search alone. Maybe there's 12 campaigns per store. Multiply that by the 300. You've got 4 people managing all of those campaigns on a weekly basis, and that really just puts you in more of a reactive state than a proactive state. So our teams were digging in every day, but they weren't being strategic in nature because they were constantly pulling the levers all the time. So that was problematic. And I think once we started to get to the point of there's so much happening in the space, new car is down, used car is down, there's always something that has to happen. So we just decided that it was best for us to start consolidating the efforts and then putting forth like agencies in our environment that can help us execute at scale while we could take a step back and really think through strategy and how we want to approach things. So in 2017, we went through an RFP process. We brought in a bunch of different agencies, some with some really good ad tech to help us to get to where we needed to be. And that was kind of the start of all of it, and also the culmination of just all of us coming together and working closely together as a team versus being so siloed within the organization.
Well, and even bringing in AI to your model, it's almost like it's almost like hiring another person, in the sense of you had just, 4 people, 300 plus stores, and so you needed to, in order to keep up, you needed to bring in AI. We'll talk about that. How was AI driving that?
So, before we got to that point, though, there was this transition that had to happen. We had this team executing for us. We had our team in-house doing strategy, and we had to learn over time some of the things that we needed to deploy. So Google being like really the first one to tap into. We actually initially had the platform Kenshu years ago, and they promised us we can do inventory at scale campaigns. That didn't work out. We went to SA360 quickly after that, and I have someone here on my team, and we were just chatting a few minutes ago, but he was like one of the first ones that was like starting to tap into some of the machine learning and really starting to focus on how do we get our bids right, how do we use these bidding strategies to help us get better at what we do, and that's really where it started. And then from there, it grew. So we tapped into that. We still tap into it today. And the results that we get from it, I mean, just pre-COVID to now, I would say that our cost per leads probably dropped by 50%, just because we're leaning on machine learning. And that was also previous to even like Meta really doing anything for automotive. Like that wasn't even a thing in 2016. They were too busy working on e-com in general, mortgage, leads and things like that, but they weren't focused on automotive. So we really wanted to get into the game with their AI and their algorithms, and we started to hack their dynamic product ad catalog, and we created our own catalogs for our own inventory for all of our cars that we had on the lot.
Well, just curious in terms, because we even heard a little about that from yesterday, how necessarily like using PMAX, but Jenna uses it, but uses it the way she wants to. Amy the same way. Are you just jumping in and using it the kind of this way it's intended, or are you making it your own?
We're doing a little bit of both, I would say. Especially back then, VLAs didn't exist, and now in Google we can utilize the AI for vehicle listing ads, which we've only been doing the last few years, and then in Meta the same way. But when you think about automotive, not a lot of automotive companies have consolidated marketing groups, but we do. And we have so much inventory. So knowing that we have so much inventory, we're able to feed the algorithms and feed that AI what it needs so that it can find the right people to buy the right car and get us the results that we want. So that process is definitely probably different than a lot of other automotive groups do today, because they usually just set PMAX up or something along those lines for an individual store, but we can really feed it all of our inventory. And that just makes that program run so much smoother. And then we're able to segment probably a whole lot better than any other, because we're not just one brand. We have multiple brands, we're in multiple markets. So the opportunity to be able to scale and influence that AI and continue to put the information in it needs, it's that saying, garbage in, garbage out, right? The more you give it, the more it's gonna do well for you. And so we really heavily focus on that, which is great.
So what is, since now you're adopting AI, you're embracing it, what is it offering you? What is it giving you that you weren't getting before?
So efficiencies, that's for sure. I think for the last 5 years, I feel like every year you go into a new year and you're like, this is the year of efficiency. This is the year. Every year is a year for efficiency for us. But I think right now what we're seeing across like our Google campaigns and our Facebook campaigns, we're seeing some really good progress. But we made some really incredible progress even on the programmatic side. When we first started, it was, your run-of-the-mill, your audiences, and you're doing your PMP deals and all of this stuff. We were actually the first buyers of media on CarGurus. We were the first buyers of media on KBB, doing individual deals with them for display advertising to fuel that funnel for us and create the demand that we need. And as we started to evolve over the years, we've switched agencies. We now work with Epsilon today, and they have a very unique offering referred to as their Core ID. They have over 7,000 signals. They go across multiple publishers. It's a very robust program, but it now allows us to target at the individual level versus a device versus an IP. Like, we know that the person that is in market is actually in market and for what car they're in market for. So we can give them that right message, right time, and exactly what they're looking for. So it's really display with predictive modeling. That's what it is. But we didn't have that before. So now that we have that, we actually at times can even see that some of the influenced lead activity that happens is sometimes more efficient than our paid search advertising, which is kind of crazy. But it definitely helps to create the necessary demand that we need. And knowing that we have that data that we can share with our dealers, we're at least able to talk to them about the new things, innovative things that we're doing. Because at the end of the day, if you're a dealer and you work in automotive, the only thing that's important to you is how many leads am I getting and how many cars am I selling. But in order for you to get the number of leads that you need and the cars sold, you need to have a full funnel approach. So I think that has really helped us a lot with the AI models that they're using on the display side. So it's been really a great program.
Well, and what about with CDPs? And are you creating those, and
Yes.
what are you doing with that?
So in auto today, it's really funny because I don't know how many people in the room actually have a CDP. I think I heard a couple of people mention it over the last couple of days. We've actually sat on cleansed data for a long time. And in auto, that is kind of rare. I don't know how many of you get postcards in the mail for a car you probably don't even have. That's kind of annoying. Come get an oil change for a car you've probably traded in like 5 years ago. It happens all the time. We sit on cleansed data. We have for a long time. Our partners that we work with are very meticulous about that. And Epsilon's the name that I mentioned before. They work very closely with us on that. And now we're building the layer on top to activate. So the activation layer is being built. But in automotive, I think people say that, automotive's like a little far behind in terms of technology. And they kind of are, but they kind of aren't. But the CDP conversation, we've been having that conversation for like 5 or 6 years, and we're only now getting ready to deploy that plus MTA, which is fabulous. But everybody else in auto is like, what's a CDP? You go to these conferences, and they're talking about CDPs, but some of these general managers don't understand what that is. They just need to know that their data needs to be cleansed, and you should not be sending direct mail to someone that does not have that vehicle anymore. And that's what a CDP can help you with, partly. There's a lot more it can do, obviously, but we are working on building that. Hopefully it'll be done by the end, maybe by the end of the summer. I don't know when we're gonna deploy our first activation, but we're excited about the potential. Our MTA models are, I think, fully developed. We're working through that now to see how all of that will fit in, because in a world where lead sale is all that matters, we need to showcase the value of all the other tactics that we're actually deploying. And MTA is gonna give that to us, because we still live in a last click world in our company. So it's a hard conversation sometimes to have when your business is, functioning, but you're not seeing the sales that you need to, And there's always an emergency sometimes, so.
Yeah. Well, you say last click world, but also, we have been talking about we have to do all these different channels, and especially with, you have to be off digital, offline, and then in person, whatever, all different ways to meet people. Are you able to, because when you're talking programmatic and AI, you kind of keep it at that digital level, but that would be losing a lot of information, I would think. So how are you kind of combining it all and bringing it together?
Well, I don't know about lost information, but we really do try to work in an omni-channel approach. So we work very closely with our teams, and the fact that we have one agency that helps us to execute really does help a lot. They do pull in a lot of our transactional data, so there's a lot that we can do with that when you sit on that first-party data. It's so valuable. We don't use programmatic with third-party cookies. We're totally on a first-party audience basis. Everything that we do is focused on the audience and that first party, building those other audiences to attract other prospects to come in. But the data loss component, I don't think that there's really a resolution to data loss. You're going to have that regardless. When third-party cookies go away, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know that anybody really knows what's going to happen, but we're already halfway there. 50% of it's already gone. Firefox, it's already gone. So, and we're still getting the data today. So we'll have to see. I don't know if the floor will drop out. I doubt it. But there may be some mishaps, and we may have to figure out some things, and there may be some gaps we need to close. But we're just going to have to keep an eye on it and continue to monitor it. But for now, we're functioning really well, and it's very efficient. Every time we look at the numbers, we're pleasantly pleased with what we see. And it just continues to get better, and then we sit back and we're able to now say, okay, well, what's the next thing? What else can we do? Our roadmap in terms of testing is like so long. We were just talking last night and saying we have so many tests that we want to do, and there's just a lot that we can unlock. And because of the nature of how we're set up, we have the ability to do that at a much quicker pace than anybody else in the automotive industry, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I think that's really impressive. And also, you talked about it a little bit as you're going, but dive into it a little more in terms of the personalization and really reaching particular customers, and how has AI informed that, and then how are you leveraging it?
So today, we're doing a couple of different things. So obviously we use dynamic creative. We have the platform to be able to do that. We feed it with our inventory. We monitor the audiences, and then we can showcase ads in milliseconds and be able to show exactly what a user is looking at. And we have our websites completely tracked, and we're monitoring every little bit that happens within the user experience so that we can ensure that what we give them, a consumer back, is exactly what they're looking for. But we've also introduced dynamic video as a piece of that too. When you think about the commercials that come on TV for leases and just discount deals or what have you, all of those commercials, we have 300 roughly stores, and we've got a lot of incentives that can potentially come into play. So we could be looking at thousands and thousands of videos at any given time. So we have to utilize automation and allow the machines to know what assets to pull, pick, and show. And that's what that AI is doing for us.
Well, and you talked about the more information you give it, and we've said that you have to give it that information. And then in terms of your bidding strategies, even like how is that? Are you trusting it in the sense?
Yes, we're definitely embracing it. There's no reason not to. There was somebody that was on a panel yesterday that said Google really does know the intent. They do, and Facebook is actually really good at it too. And they just know. We launched a test recently, and part of that test was we were extracting an audience, and the whole idea of the AI is to find the audiences. So when you extract audiences, you're defeating the purpose of actually allowing the AI to run for you and do what it needs to do and find those people that you want to find. So we do lean in heavily, more so in the last 2 years than ever before. And it's an interesting thing because when you're leaning in that way and you have people that still have like the methodology in their head of, well, I'm just going to go to Google search and look for a keyword, like your leadership teams may be searching for your ads online, I'm sure, and they shouldn't be, and they're like, we can't find ourselves. Well, Google's really good about knowing whether or not you have intent, and that's why we lean in, because we know we can trust that. And the numbers prove it, so why not? We should just embrace it. But that doesn't mean at the end of the day that we have to step away and not analyze it. I can't walk away and say, just let it run and don't look at the data. We still have to have a human touch associated with it because we need to know that it's working the way it needs to. And sometimes mistakes happen. We've been having an issue with Meta this week. They made some changes on their UI and updated something within the setup for ads and the ad creation, and it's messed up all of our ads. And because of that, all of our KPIs like shot up and leads dropped out, and we were like, what's happening? So they're making changes constantly, and sometimes they don't tell you that they're doing that, unfortunately. So we have to constantly keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't impact our outcomes.
Well, I mean, talking about obviously the human touch, but also then their ethical issues come up, and you can trust it. And as far as you keep an eye on that, but are there other concerns? Like, let's go to the other side of things.
Yeah.
That's maybe you have to at least be wary of.
I mean, there's concerns around, collection of data, storing data, activating on data. That's, that is what it is. I mean, look, I don't like when I shop online and I've got ads following me everywhere. I hate that. I hate that people are collecting my data. But as a marketer, that is my livelihood.
I'm sorry. I think it's worse when you talk about something. Not even Google it, and all of a sudden you're seeing pop-ups for it. And it's like,
yes, that's super creepy
hello.
too. A few years back, we did like myself and a few other ladies in my company did a presentation for our CFO for a Chamber of Commerce or something, and we were talking about like retargeting back then. It's a little different now. This was years ago, but I remember her sitting at the table saying, "That's super creepy. It's super creepy that you've went and looked at something and then it's following you all over the place. But now you can actually speak." Has anybody seen that video on TikTok where this woman is talking to her husband's phone and she's telling the phone exactly what she wants for her birthday? Because she's in the hopes that he's going to start getting ads for a pair of shoes or a purse or whatever. I thought that was hilarious, but that's...
What was it for? Do you know the brand?
It was just some random TikTok video. There's
so I thought it was an
my
ad
guilty
that
pleasure at night, but she was just literally on. It was in the bathroom, and she started speaking to it because her birthday was coming up. I seen another one where there's somebody asking for like want to go on a second honeymoon or something, like trip to Europe, and it'll start in the hopes that they're going to get advertised
That's
too.
something that we can all consider.
Yeah. So I guess nowadays everybody's like, embracing AI in some way, knowing that they're going to get advertised, but kind of a unique way to do it.
Well, all right, I want to open it up to everyone, but I want to just ask in terms of, as we've been talking about, and you have been mentioning, there's a lot of things that are really beneficial with AI and used correctly. But then, are there things you're seeing down the line? Are you hoping or excited about anything that's coming up?
I mean, there's some concepts around deep learning that I think is interesting, going beyond machine learning that we'll probably start investigating a little bit more. But what I'm actually really excited about after being here for a couple of days is a lot of these people that have been here, the ideas that have come to the table, the partners that you've brought in to sponsor have opened my eyes. We've been living in this same playbook for a long time of Google Meta, and I'm quite frankly tired of it. And it's the same old playbook. So I think coming here, it's kind of opened my eyes to find some other opportunities. And I think that excites me a little bit more, other than the AI thing is not going to go away anytime soon. But the idea that I have options outside of the big two is exciting to me. So I'm looking forward to that.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Melissa? Got to wake up here. It's Saturday morning.
I have one and a mic.
Oh.
Hi. So have you looked at, because obviously I'm on the AI bandwagon, but have you looked at the efficacy of and the efficiency of what you're doing pre and post AI to determine if the investment in the tools that you're using has actually been worth it?
We are looking at that, and we are seeing that it's worth it. But when we talk about tools, like, you know, we're utilizing the AI that's given to us by the biggest two publishers out there, right? And then on the display side of the house, it's a proprietary DSP that's being utilized. And as long as we're seeing the numbers, we'll continue to invest. Because if we're seeing that it's positive for us, there's no reason for us to go another route. Let's just keep pushing in. Let's keep investing. And it's showing in our numbers and our results, and it makes sense. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent.
I'm curious, with the much as you're using it, though, are you doing anything to, say, protect yourself? Like, or how are any of us, like, not just from AI, but just cookies going away? Like, I know we've had this conversation, you know, like, you really don't, you're wondering, is everyone really ready?
Right. We work very closely with Google in terms of, like, you know, the privacy things that we need to set up for GA, but then we also, like, our entire ecosystem around programmatic is very well protected. We feel that everything that they have done to protect the data that they're consuming and market and people that they're marketing to is protected. So they pride themselves on that. They utilize a program called Core ID that has privacy protection built in. So we feel pretty secure with the environment that they've created and offered us. But, you know, there are definitely concerns out there, and then there's also, like, challenges around that. When people start not wanting to have you track them, how are we going to find our consumers? I don't know. We just have to keep figuring out ways to get around that and being as nimble as we can, thinking outside the box, because I don't know how else we'll be able to address it. It's like an open question that is really hard to answer, but you know, we have to just see what happens as the days go by. But what we have in place today, I feel really pretty good about the protection we've put in place to protect our consumers.
It sounds like you feel much more, oh, we do have a question back there, but just to finish, you're much more positive about the way AI is going as opposed to.
I'm totally positive about it. I'm open to it. You know, in a world where you're being asked every day to do more with less, and you can lean on machine learning and AI to help facilitate your job and give positive outcomes to a business that you're working for, I mean, that's pretty cool. Anybody remember the day that when Google, before even keywords existed, and you just did a buy on Google, it was like, I don't know, $25,000. You were just at the top of the page, and now it's keyword driven, but now it's not keyword driven. It's audience driven. So it's really evolved over the years. It's been cool to watch. That's for sure.
Okay, Eric.
2 questions. The first one.
Who are you, Eric?
I'm sorry?
Who are you?
Introduce yourself.
Eric Butler from Universal Technical Institute. And I'm curious about, so you have 300 dealerships, and you talked about, you know, multiplying that by campaigns. How do you deliver geographically, and how do you ensure?
We're super hyper local.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yes, we have to be.
I would imagine.
Because we're not national. We're super hyper local, and that's not just for, like, our paid advertising. I mean, we have to be hyper local in our broadcast efforts as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, for our awareness play. But yeah, we're super hyper local down to, like, radii. You have to be. The whole auto industry is really set up that way. I remember years ago, now we don't really focus as much on zip codes anymore. But years ago, we were really restricted by the manufacturers for zip codes. And if you were in the wrong zip code, you could literally get a fine from one of the manufacturers if they found it. And they audit us often. So we have to be very careful.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The second one is attribution, especially with programmatic. How do you guys do that?
So
Or do you?
like I mentioned, we're introducing MTA, so that's rolling out very, very soon. So that's going to help. But we do look at our sales data, you know, just like any other programmatic. How any other programmatic program should run. You should be looking at your sales data and matching that back to make sure that you're reaching the right potential audience and looking at your incrementality, making sure that it's what it needs to be. But because we have such a close connection with our agency and the data that we sit on is constantly circulating in our environment, we can see that pretty much right away. What we're doing now is getting ready to build the narrative around the MTA model so we can show the true influence across all of our channels.
Hi, Aaron Moskowitz, Golden Hippo Media. Quick question, PMAX is still kind of new, and I'm guessing your GTM setup was highly sophisticated because you're in lead gen. I'm wondering if you've looked into, or if you're wondering if maybe the benefits from like how you set up your goal events and the user paths, and you kind of show Google what your goals are, maybe if that helped more than the AI of PMAX.
100%.
And are you able to test that?
Yeah, we're with something we're still working on actually. We're limited right now, but we actually have an active project right now that we're working on to pull a lot more data in so that we can get better about our optimization efforts, because that's super important, is getting to the value base. And that's the direction that we're going in. I mean, you don't want to live off of just like the conversion tag and just, you know, you can't, because what I mentioned before earlier was we're on a last click basis, right? So when a consumer comes in and they submit a lead, the last one that gets into the CRM is the one that's going to get credit, and that doesn't make any sense. So getting that data from there and pushing it back in is what we're going to be looking at next, for sure. We actually use Telium as our tag management system, so we have a pretty seamless approach.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? All right, Melissa, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.